Executive humiliated a stranger with wine. Next morning, their $500 million deal was dead. Excuse me, this bar is for invited guests only. You people always try to sneak into places you don't belong. Sarah Jones's words echoed across the marble floors. 300 heads turned. Phones rose. The chandeliers seemed to brighten on the confrontation. 45 minutes earlier, Jackson Smith had walked through those same doors as the man Cornerstone Technologies desperately needed, the self-made billionaire whose signature on Monday would save their company, establishing the catastrophic gap between his reality and Sarah's prejudiced perception. At 34, Jackson had already survived the impossible. Foster care at 7. Community college while working 3 jobs. A failed startup that cost him everything. And the brutal skepticism of a tech industry that rarely saw people who looked like him in boardrooms. Nexus AI Solutions had grown from a garage operation to a $2.8 billion valuation in 7 years. His AI infrastructure powered financial systems across 14 countries. Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, and Singapore's sovereign wealth fund all relied on his technology. Tonight was supposed to be his coronation. By Monday at 9 a.m., he would sign a partnership with Cornerstone Technologies worth $500 million, expanding into European and Asian markets while providing crucial infrastructure to underserved communities. The invitation in his tuxedo pocket was embossed on cream cardstock with gold lettering. The suit was Brioni. The confidence was hard-earned. Instead, within the hour, Jackson would stand with wine dripping down his face while Sarah Jones's career, reputation, and freedom circled the drain. The Metropolitan Grand Ballroom looked like a Gatsby fever dream, crystal chandeliers, gold leaf molding, marble columns disappearing into frescoed ceilings. Jackson arrived precisely at 7:30 p.m. Mr. Smith. The maitre d' recognized him immediately. We're honored. Your table is number 7, beside the Cornerstone Technologies delegation. Marcus Chen, his business partner and COO, met him inside. Marcus was Taiwanese-American, Stanford MBA, with investment banking pedigree that opened doors Jackson's genius alone couldn't. Thomas Cornerstone is running late, Marcus said. Flight delay from London. He'll be here by 9. Sarah Jones? Already working the room. Fair warning, she's in full gatekeeper mode. Marcus's expression tightened. I heard her telling Senator Richardson that maintaining standards separates premier events from networking free-for-alls. Jackson nodded. He'd never met Sarah Jones in person, though her name appeared on every Cornerstone document. Senior Vice President of Strategic Partnerships. Stanford MBA. Daughter of venture capitalist William Jones. 20 years deciding who got access and who got shut out. He'd seen her name. She'd apparently never seen his photograph. The ballroom filled with tech royalty, CEOs of unicorn startups, venture capitalists, academics whose research launched industries. Jackson recognized faces from magazine covers. This was his world now. The weight of constantly proving himself never lifted. Every room carried the burden of representation. One mistake, and he wasn't just Jackson who screwed up, he was evidence that those people couldn't handle pressure. You good? Marcus asked quietly. Always. They moved through the crowd. Jackson exchanged greetings, a Japanese CEO, a German automotive executive, a French AI researcher. These people knew him, respected what he'd built. The bar stood backlit at the ballroom's end, bottles creating a jeweled glow. Jackson ordered Chateau Margaux. The bartender smiled warmly. Mr. Smith, wonderful to see you again. I remember you from the Digital Innovation Summit. Good memory. Your speech changed how I think about data privacy. My daughter's studying computer science because of that talk. Jackson raised his glass, admiring the ruby color. Excuse me. The voice came sharp and cold from behind. Sarah Jones had been orchestrating this ballroom for 90 minutes, a smile for Deutsche Bank, a laugh at Samsung's executive story, thoughtful nods during MIT's quantum computing discussion. This was her domain. These were her people, educated, accomplished, refined. The kind who understood that excellence required gatekeeping, that standards meant exclusion, that not everyone deserved a seat at this table. She'd worked too hard to watch it diluted by whatever diversity initiative was fashionable this quarter. Her father, William Jones, had taught her early, the room's value is determined by who you keep out, not who you let in. 20 years in tech had proven him right. She'd built her reputation on discretion, on knowing who belonged and who was chasing clout. Tonight's gala was crucial. Cornerstone Technologies needed this Nexus AI partnership desperately. Their cloud infrastructure was hemorrhaging clients to nimbler competitors. Without Jackson Smith's technology, they'd be obsolete within 18 months. She'd spent 6 months on this deal. Conference calls, contract negotiations, board presentations. Everything hinged on Monday's signing. Jackson Smith. The name appeared on every document. She'd memorized his credentials, MIT dropout who built revolutionary AI algorithms, 7-year trajectory from nothing to billions. Impressive on paper. She'd never seen his photograph. Didn't need to. Tech visionaries looked a certain way, Zuckerberg, Musk, the Stanford dropouts in hoodies. She'd know him when she saw him. The bartender's voice carried across the marble, "Mr. Smith, wonderful to see you again." Sarah's head snapped toward the bar. A black man in a tuxedo accepted a wine glass, laughing at something the bartender said. Mid-30s, athletic build, confident posture. Obviously staff, probably catering management, maybe event security trying to blend in. The audacity. She'd warned the event coordinator about this. Premium galas attracted crashers, people trying to network above their station, service workers who thought a tuxedo rental granted them access. This was exactly why standards mattered. Sarah crossed the ballroom, her champagne gown flowing behind her like a battle flag. Several executives watched her approach, sensing drama. She positioned herself directly behind the man. Close enough that her voice would carry. "Excuse me." Each word precisely enunciated. "This bar is for invited guests only." He turned slowly. Calm eyes, no surprise, no guilt. That irritated her more. "You people always try to sneak into places you don't belong." Jackson felt the familiar calculation begin, how to respond without becoming the angry one, the difficult one, the one who proved them right. He set his wine glass on the bar carefully. Reached into his tuxedo pocket. Retrieved the embossed invitation with its gold lettering and official seal. "I'm a guest," he said, voice level, holding it out. Sarah Jones didn't even glance at the invitation. Her eyes remained fixed on his face with an expression he'd seen too many times, absolute certainty that she knew who belonged and who didn't. "Obviously fake," she said. "Security sweeps should have caught you at the door." Around them, conversations had stopped completely. The bartender's smile vanished, replaced by horrified recognition of what was unfolding. Marcus Chen moved closer, his hand already reaching toward his phone. "Ms. Jones," Jackson said, keeping his tone professional, "I suggest you examine the invitation before." "I don't need to examine anything." Her voice rose deliberately, performing now for the growing audience. "I've been in this industry for 20 years. I know who belongs at events like this." She turned to address the crowd forming around them. "We work incredibly hard to maintain standards at these galas. Background checks, verified guest lists, security protocols. And somehow, someone always slips through." More phones emerged from pockets and purses. The modern reflex, if it's dramatic, film it. Jackson saw at least 15 devices pointed their direction, red recording lights glowing. "Ma'am," the bartender interjected nervously, "Mr. Smith is actually—" "I'm not interested in whatever story he told you," Sarah cut him off. "That's how they operate. Charm, manipulation, playing on people's sympathy. Marcus stepped forward, his voice tight. Ms. Jones, I'm Marcus Chen, COO of Nexus AI Solutions. This is Jackson Smith, our CEO. Perhaps if you checked and you're his accomplice. Sarah's laugh was sharp. Very clever. Corporate titles, matching tuxedos. Did you rent them from the same place you printed that fake invitation? She raised her hand, fingers snapping with the authority of someone accustomed to immediate obedience. Security. We have a situation at the bar. Jackson stood perfectly still, his expression unreadable. He'd learned long ago that responding with anger only confirmed their prejudices. Staying calm, staying dignified, that was the only weapon he had. Even when every fiber of his being wanted to scream. Two security guards approached cautiously, their expressions uncertain. The head of security, Robert Chen, no relation to Marcus, had worked enough high-profile events to sense when something was off. Ma'am. Robert addressed Sarah carefully. What seems to be the problem? These two crashed the gala. Sarah's voice carried across the ballroom, clear and commanding. Phones tracked her every gesture like she was performing Shakespeare. I confronted them at the bar, and they're claiming to be invited guests. They even produced fake credentials. Robert glanced at Jackson, then at the invitation still in his hand. Something flickered across the security chief's face, recognition, maybe concern. Sir, may I see your? He already showed me, Sarah interrupted. It's obviously counterfeit. Look at him. Does he look like someone who'd be invited to a gala sponsored by Cornerstone Technologies? The crowd had swelled to 40 people now, forming a loose semicircle around the confrontation. Jackson recognized several faces, a venture capitalist who tried to invest in Nexus AI, a CEO he'd met at TechCrunch Disrupt, a journalist from Wired who'd interviewed him last year. None of them said a word. Just watched. Just recorded. The weight of representation pressed down harder. If he responded with righteous anger, he'd be aggressive. If he stayed silent, he'd be suspicious. There was no right move, just different ways to lose. Ms. Jones, Robert said carefully, perhaps we should verify the guest list before. I don't need to verify anything. Sarah snatched the wine glass from Jackson's hand with such force that Chateau Margaux sloshed over the rim, staining her fingers. You think you can drink $300 wine? You probably can't even afford dinner here. She held the glass up like evidence at a trial, droplets of red wine catching the chandelier light. This is what's wrong with these events now, she addressed the crowd directly. Too soft, too permissive. No standards anymore. Everyone thinks they deserve access, that excellence should be diluted in the name of inclusion. Several people in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. A few nodded agreement. Most just kept filming, hungry for content, for the drama to escalate. Marcus had his phone out now, openly recording. Ms. Jones, you're making a serious mistake. Jackson Smith is. I know exactly who Jackson Smith is, Sarah snapped. I've spent 6 months negotiating with his company. And this man, she gestured dismissively at Jackson, is not him. Jackson's jaw tightened. Just slightly. The only crack in his composure. Ms. Jones, he said quietly, I strongly suggest you verify your information before this escalates further. Sarah's face contorted with rage at being contradicted. Being challenged. Being told she was wrong in front of her peers, her industry, her world. 20 years of gatekeeping, and now some crasher was telling her to verify information. The absolute audacity. Don't you dare tell me what to do, she hissed, stepping closer. Close enough that Jackson could smell her perfume, something expensive and floral. You don't give orders here. You don't belong here. You will never belong here. The crowd tightened, sensing the climax. Phones raised higher, capturing every angle. This would be viral within the hour. The only question was who would emerge as hero or villain. Security, remove him immediately, Sarah commanded. And check his pockets. He's probably stolen something already. Robert hesitated, glancing between Sarah and Jackson, clearly torn between protocol and instinct. Jackson remained motionless, his hands visible, his posture non-threatening. The wine glass still clutched in Sarah's hand trembled slightly as her rage built. "Ms. Jones," Marcus tried again, his voice urgent now, "please listen." "I'm done listening." Sarah's voice cracked across the ballroom like a whip. "I'm done with people like you infiltrating our spaces, lowering our standards, demanding we accommodate your presence." She looked at the wine glass in her hand. Then at Jackson's pristine white tuxedo shirt. Then back at his face, calm, dignified, refusing to give her the reaction she wanted. That refusal to be intimidated enraged her beyond reason. "You want to pretend you belong?" Sarah raised the glass. "You want to play dress-up in our world?" Time seemed to slow. Jackson saw what was coming but didn't move, didn't flinch. Marcus lunged forward half a second too late. Sarah threw the Chateau Margaux directly into Jackson's face. Red wine exploded across his features, drenching his hair, his forehead, cascading down his cheeks like blood. The liquid soaked into his white shirt, spreading in a crimson stain that looked almost theatrical under the chandeliers. The crowd gasped collectively. Camera flashes lit up the scene like paparazzi at a premiere. Jackson stood absolutely still, wine dripping from his chin, his expression unreadable. He didn't wipe his face. Didn't curse. Didn't react at all. The silence stretched unbearably. Then Sarah screamed, "And he touched me. He assaulted me. Someone call the police." She stumbled backward dramatically, pointing at Jackson with a trembling hand. "Did you see that? He grabbed me. He attacked me." Marcus's phone captured every frame. "That's a lie. He never touched you. Everyone here saw. Call 911. Sarah shrieked. "I want this man arrested for assault." Robert spoke urgently into his radio, "We need police response at the Metropolitan Grand Ballroom. Possible assault situation." Jackson finally moved, slowly raised one hand to wipe wine from his eyes. His voice, when he spoke, was quiet enough that the crowd had to strain to hear. "You should have verified." The security office was cramped, 4 people in a space designed for 2. Jackson, Sarah, Marcus, and Robert Chen clustered around a computer terminal while dispatch confirmed police were 7 minutes out. Jackson's tuxedo was ruined, wine still dripping from his hair onto his collar. He'd accepted a towel from Robert but hadn't used it, as if the stain was evidence he needed preserved. "This will all be resolved shortly," Sarah said, her confidence returning now that they were away from the crowd. She'd smoothed her dress, reapplied lipstick, transformed back into the polished executive. "You'll see. His name won't be on the guest list. Then you can arrest him properly." Robert typed carefully, pulling up the gala's registration database. "What name should I search for?" "Try Jackson Smith," Marcus said coldly. "CEO of Nexus AI Solutions." "That won't be there," Sarah laughed. "Jackson Smith is scheduled to arrive Monday for contract signing. He's not even in the country. Our assistant confirmed his travel itinerary yesterday. He's flying in from Singapore Sunday night." Robert's fingers paused over the keyboard. "Ma'am, what does Jackson Smith look like?" "I don't know. I've never met him in person." Sarah waved dismissively. "But I know he's not this man. Now please, search the database so we can end this charade." Robert typed, "Jackson Smith." The loading circle spun. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3. Results appeared. Robert's face went pale. Completely bloodless. "Mr. Smith." His voice cracked slightly. "Jackson Smith. CEO, Nexus AI Solutions. He turned the monitor so they could all see. The entry glowed on screen in official registration font. Jackson Smith. Nexus AI Solutions, Chief Executive Officer. VIP Priority, Cornerstone Partnership Signing. Table 7, Do Not Disturb. Special Requirements, Direct Line to Thomas Cornerstone. Below the text was a photograph. High Resolution. Professional Headshot. The same man currently standing in their office, covered in Chateau Margaux. Sarah's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. No sound emerged. That's impossible, she finally whispered. Jackson Smith is flying in from Singapore. He's not here. He can't be here. Marcus turned his phone screen toward her, the video he'd been recording since the confrontation began. Want to revise your statement about him assaulting you? Because I have clear footage showing you threw wine in his face while he stood completely still. Sarah's hand reached for the desk to steady herself. But the itinerary, our assistant confirmed. I changed my flight, Jackson said quietly, wiping wine from his eyebrow. Arrived 3 days early. Wanted to tour your facilities, meet the team before Monday's signing. Thought it would show good faith. His expression was unreadable, but his voice carried something sharp underneath the calm. Thought it would be a partnership worth building. The security office door burst open. Thomas Cornerstone, CEO of Cornerstone Technologies, filled the doorway, 62 years old, silver-haired, wearing a tuxedo that cost more than most people's cars. He'd been running late from London, frustrated by delays, eager to personally greet the man who held his company's future. Robert, someone said there was an incident at the bar. Thomas stopped mid-sentence, his eyes finding Jackson. Jackson. My God, what happened? Are you all right? The room's temperature dropped 20 degrees. Thomas crossed the small office in 3 strides, genuine concern on his face. Your tuxedo, is that wine? Did someone? He noticed Sarah for the first time, standing frozen against the back wall. Ms. Jones? What's going on here? Sarah's mouth worked soundlessly. Her brain couldn't process the reality unfolding, that the wine-soaked man she'd humiliated, accused, and assaulted was actually Jackson Smith. The Jackson Smith. The man whose technology her company desperately needed. The man who could save them or destroy them with a single word. Thomas, Jackson said calmly, perhaps Ms. Jones can explain. All eyes turned to Sarah. She felt the walls closing in, felt her carefully constructed world crumbling like sand castles against tide. There was a misunderstanding, she stammered. I thought, he looked like. Like what? Jackson's voice remained quiet, but something dangerous lurked beneath. Finish the sentence, Ms. Jones. I looked like what, exactly? Thomas's expression transformed from confusion to dawning horror as he pieced together what must have happened. His face flushed red, then went pale. Ms. Jones, Thomas said slowly, each word careful and measured, please tell me you didn't. You know who this is, right? You've been managing this partnership for 6 months. I never saw his photograph. Sarah's voice rose desperately. The contracts, the calls, they were all, I just assumed. You assumed. Jackson let the words hang in the air. Based on what, exactly? My appearance? The color of my skin? The assumption that someone who looks like me couldn't possibly belong at your gala? That's not, I didn't mean. You called me a crasher, Jackson continued, his calm more devastating than rage. You said, you people always try to sneak in. You refused to look at my invitation. You stole my wine glass and threw it in my face in front of 300 witnesses. Then you falsely accused me of assault to have me arrested. Marcus held up his phone. I have the entire incident recorded. Every word, every action. Including the false assault allegation. Thomas's hand rose to his face, rubbing his temples. Ms. Jones, do you have any idea what you've done? It was a mistake. Sarah's voice cracked. I'll apologize. We can fix this. We can. Fix this. Jackson's laugh was hollow. Mr. Cornerstone, I need you to understand something. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a revelation. He turned fully to face Thomas, wine still dripping from his hair. I cannot, in good conscience, partner with an organization that employs people like Ms. Jones in leadership positions. The partnership is terminated. The video went viral within 40 minutes. Someone in the crowd, multiple someones, actually, had uploaded their footage to Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn. By midnight, #WineGatekeeper was trending nationally. By dawn, internationally. The angles were perfect. Sarah's finger pointing. Jackson's calm dignity. The wine arcing through chandelier light. Sarah's false accusation of assault. The crowd's collective gasp. Marcus's video was the most damaging, uninterrupted footage from the bar confrontation through the wine throwing, clearly showing Jackson never touched her. By Sunday morning, every major tech publication had covered the story. TechCrunch, Cornerstone executive assault CEO she was supposed to partner with. Wired, when prejudice costs $500 million, the Sarah Jones incident. Bloomberg, Cornerstone Technologies loses Nexus AI deal after executive's racist attack. Sarah was placed on administrative leave Saturday morning. Terminated by Monday afternoon. The criminal investigation opened Tuesday, assault charges, filing a false police report. The DA's office, sensing public pressure and clear video evidence, moved fast. Jackson filed a civil lawsuit Wednesday, assault, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. His lawyers were methodical and merciless. Cornerstone Technologies stock plummeted. Investors demanded answers. Board members resigned. Thomas Cornerstone issued public apologies that rang hollow against the video evidence. Competitors smelled blood. Companies that had been losing clients to Cornerstone suddenly found those clients receptive to switching. Without the Nexus AI partnership, Cornerstone's cloud infrastructure was obsolete within months. Other tech leaders distanced themselves. Conference invitations were withdrawn. Partnership deals dissolved. The company's reputation, built over 30 years, collapsed in 30 days. Jackson gave one interview, to CNN's tech correspondent. This wasn't about one bad apple, he said, calm and articulate. This was about a culture that enabled her to feel comfortable acting that way. Ms. Jones didn't invent that prejudice in the moment. She carried it with her every day, in every decision about who got access and who didn't. The only difference was this time, someone was filming. The interviewer asked if he'd reconsider the partnership. No, Jackson said simply. Some things can't be unsaid. Some actions can't be undone. And some organizations need to fail as a lesson to others. The lesson was learned across Silicon Valley. Diversity training was mandated. HR policies were rewritten. Those cynics noted it wasn't conscience driving the change, it was fear. Fear of being the next viral catastrophe. Fear of losing the next $500 million deal. 3 months later, Sarah Jones stood in a courtroom for sentencing. The courtroom was smaller than Sarah had imagined. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, cheap chairs, nothing like the boardrooms where she'd once wielded power. Judge Catherine Morrison reviewed the case file with the expression of someone profoundly disappointed in humanity. Ms. Jones, you've been found guilty of assault and filing a false police report. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours, unusually fast, indicating the evidence was overwhelming. Sarah stood beside her lawyer, her champagne gown replaced by a conservative gray suit. She'd lost 15 pounds. Her hair had thinned from stress. The confident executive from the gala had been replaced by someone haunted. Your actions weren't just criminal, Judge Morrison continued. They were calculated. You created a public spectacle. You encouraged others to film. You falsely accused the victim of assault to justify your own violence. And you did all of this based purely on prejudice. The judge's eyes were cold. 18 months in county jail. $12 million in civil damages, as determined by the separate civil trial. You're also prohibited from holding any executive position in a publicly traded company for 10 years. Sarah swayed slightly. Her lawyer steadied her. Do you have anything to say? Sarah opened her mouth. Closed it. What could she say? That she was sorry? That she'd made a mistake? The video showed exactly who she was. No, Your Honor. Then we're adjourned. 3 weeks later. Cornerstone Technologies stock had plummeted 68%. Key clients had abandoned ship, Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, Singapore's sovereign wealth fund all cancelled contracts. Thomas Cornerstone tried damage control, but the stench of toxicity was permanent. A competitor, Cloud Matrix Solutions, acquired Cornerstone for $400 million, a fraction of its former $2.8 billion valuation. Thousands of employees lost their jobs in the subsequent restructuring. Sarah Jones began her sentence at the county detention center. Her reputation destroyed, her career obliterated, her name permanently associated with prejudice and violence. Jackson Smith signed a partnership with Cloud Matrix Solutions, better terms, better culture, better fit. He used a portion of his $12 million settlement to fund scholarships for underrepresented students in tech. 6 months later, Jackson stood at a podium in a community college auditorium, facing 200 aspiring entrepreneurs. The venue was modest, folding chairs, fluorescent lights, a projector that kept flickering, but the energy was electric. A young woman raised her hand during Q&A. Mr. Smith, how do you deal with people who don't think you belong? Jackson touched his forehead absently, fingers tracing a small scar where the wine glass had shattered, a permanent reminder. You prove them wrong, he said. But more importantly, you build a world where the next generation doesn't have to. He paused, looking out at faces that reflected his own journey, hungry, determined, tired of being underestimated. Some lessons are written in scars. But scars mean you survived. And survival means you get to tell the story. The applause started slowly, then built to something thunderous. Outside, the sun was setting. Monday morning, Jackson would close another deal, $750 million this time, expanding Nexus AI into South America and Africa. But tonight, standing in this modest auditorium, watching these students lean forward with hope in their eyes, felt more important than any boardroom. This was why he'd survived. Why he'd endured. Why he'd stood motionless with wine dripping down his face instead of giving Sarah Jones the reaction she wanted. Because someone had to show them it was possible. Someone had to prove they belonged.